First of all, I'd like to say good afternoon to everyone, and thank you all for attending. Also, a big thank you and shout out to yourself, Rob, and Adrian at St. Catherine's Enterprise for having me on today. Just a little bit about policy management, what we do. We've been in business in Ontario, Southern Ontario, serving clients from Fort Erie to pretty much Montreal since 1989. And what we do is our primary focuses is providing customized training, strategic facilitation, coaching, conflict resolution services in a swift and professional manner to our clients so they can get on with their business. And in a nutshell, that's what we do. I've held senior positions in human resources, engineering, logistics. My expertise is on four things: emotional intelligence, neuro-linguistic programming, detecting deception, and strategic planning. It's what I do for organizations. So I'm glad you had me on today. And what I'd like to do is start off very quickly. And let's just talk about where we are. One thing I will tell you is the same thing I told the president of Millicron in Cincinnati, Ohio yesterday. He said to me, "I can't wait till things get back to normal." And I said to him, "Rob, things aren't going back to normal. There's going to be a new normal, and we don't really know what that is." And one thing about the COVID-19 virus, one thing it's done, it's acted as a catalytic converter that will help, that will define how we treat our vendors, our customers, our employees, and ourselves. And this isn't over. It's probably not going to be over for the next 12, 13 months. By the time we get a vaccine, by the time we do testing, by the time we inoculate, by the time we get a second wave, by the time we inoculate again, it's going to be very, very different. And we're living in a period right now of adjustments. And let's talk a little bit about what it is right now. I want to go back. I want to talk about something called VUCA. VUCA is an acronym for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And it came into play in 1964 by the United States Marine Corps. And it's a method that enables military operations personnel to address chaos in a turbulent environment. And it has three cornerstones. It talks about adversity, talks about capability, and talks about engagement. And if you look at it from volatility to us right now are lost opportunities, lost jobs. If you're like me, you lost 4 months of business in one day. And basically, it's almost like a natural disaster. The uncertainty that we talk about is, are things going to be the same? Will they return to somewhat semblance of order? Will business continue to be what it is? What will they look like? How much will this impact us? What's our resources like? What's our employees going to be like? In terms of complexity, how do we adapt? What can we expect? What will our vendors and customers expect of us? What will the labor market look like? Where are we going to be? And last but not least is the ambiguity piece. What are the banks doing for us? What's government doing for us? Will business thrive? Will business fail? There are no precedents. There's nothing that we can go back to. Maybe we can go back to the stock market crash of 1929, the Great Depression, but man, that was 100 years ago. The things that worked then aren't going to work now. So we need to expand beyond our competencies. And you know, in addition to that, for those of us who aren't solopreneurs, maybe we are, but maybe we have 9 or 10 people working for us. We got a bunch of other challenges that impact us. How do we motivate others? How do we motivate ourselves? How do we help others? How do we reward hard work? How do we manage virtual teams if you're in a virtual team environment? How do you create structure? How do you stay productive? How do you coach people? And coupled with that is a high level of stress and anxiety. We've got health concerns. We've got children at home. We got homeschooling. So this all takes a toll on our ability. So what I like to do is we call this leading in challenging times, solution-driven strategies for navigating the new norm. If we're talking about solution-driven strategies, let's lead with a solution. I want to talk about VUCA versus VUCA. We talked about the negative side, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. One of the ways that we offset volatility is with vision. One of the ways that we measure up to uncertainty is with understanding. Complexity can be neutralized by clarity, and ambiguity can be minimized by agility. Let's talk about vision first. Vision, especially for solopreneurs. I mean, we're not dealing in big companies here of 500,000 people. We're dealing with companies that are just us or 10 people. The critical element during chaos is vision, because vision allows us to manage our energy and the energy of all people in our organization to focus on the vision. It's almost like having an environmental scan. What's going to change or what is changing? And I want to be clear here before I go off and talk about vision. Vision to us may be our objectives and goals. Before March 13th, we had a certain amount of objectives, we had goals. They've changed. And I'm not saying we've got to get away from that, but we need a short-term fix, and we need it now. So picture ourselves as being the doctor in the emergency room. We're not interested in doing cosmetic surgery on that person and say, geez, their nose is a little crooked, let's straighten it out. We're interested in saving their lives, and that's where we are. So with that in mind, vision is what changes, what stays the same, what needs clarity, what are our short-term prospects, how are we going to work together, what's our contribution going to look like. And when we look at this piece of vision, there's two things here that we need to address. Some of us address the what, the W-H-A-T of vision. Some of us address the how in vision. And some of us may address both. Let's talk about the what. Well, the what looks something like this. Some examples in our area. If you look at Dylan's Distillery, stopped making alcohol, went to antiseptics. Louis Vuitton stopped making clothes with the personal protective equipment. Bauer Hockey Equipment stopped making goalie masks, started to make face shields. Canadian Liquid Processors on Burlington Street in Hamilton stopped recycling alcohol, like unused alcohol or alcohol that's got, that has deteriorated, and turning it into windshield washer and Varsol and turpentine. And now what they're basically doing is that they're making hand sanitizers. Inksmith stopped the educational products and started making face shields. All these things are what they're doing short term. They've had to deviate from their long-term vision just to survive in the short term. The how piece is the other side. If you remember correctly, in March, restaurants were told if you had 100 people, you can only put 50 in the restaurant. A week later, you had to close out your restaurant. You could only do takeout. Then people couldn't come into the takeout. You had to do curbside delivery. So now we're doing curbside delivery. We order online and we're going to pick up. If you look at the Cake Steakhouse, Cake now sells kits to make steaks. So you can buy a kit, dinner for two, $70. You get a 12-ounce strip loin with all the trimmings and the recipe and the seasonings to barbecue. If you look at Storm Hair Salon, I believe Storm, I don't get my hair done there, but I know my girlfriend certainly does, and she loves it. I believe they're on Welland Avenue. What are they doing? They've got something, the how piece is show us your roots. So you show them your roots, you can win $100. That $100 is a gift certificate for you to use after the COVID virus, so you can go in there and get your hair done. But every contestant gets a $10 gift certificate. They're selling beauty kits. So you get stuff for your nails. You can get stuff for your hair. You can get stuff to do your eyebrows. All those things, $80 come in, order online, drop off, or a pickup. Wellington Court have a Taco Friday. By 1:30 on Friday, they're sold out of kits. That's that how piece. And it's not only limited to that, it's also, you look at the University of Calgary. On March the 10th, the University of Calgary had 292 courses, of which 21 were available online on March the 10th. On Monday, March the 16th, no courses were available in person, and 296 courses were available online.
Wow.
5 days, everything switches over. Real estate, and I know we've got Doug here with us today, and he can talk to this too. You got to qualify your buyer right away, because you don't want to be messing around in a house. Okay, because now you're going to do your virtual tours and you're going to do your one-on-one visits. There's things that you got to wipe down. There's places that people can go, places they can't go. And the days of showing 2 or 3 houses at a time takes a toll on you. You may only be able to show 1 house at a time. So all these things are different. And the key here is, in terms of vision, what do you need to do right now in order to survive? You don't need to make 100% profit. You just want to be there when the dust settles. Because I will guarantee you this, if you're standing when this is over, you are going to be very profitable moving forward. Because I firmly believe that between 20 and 30% of businesses prior to COVID-19 will not be in business when this is over. We're going to come out the other side, but not everybody's going to come out.
Right.
And one of the things is that self-management. In that visioning process, self-management is so important. You've got to be good to yourself. You can't feed the fears. You can't be saying it's all doom and gloom, because people see that. And when they see that, they start thinking, this is the end. Even when things aren't going so good, you've got to put a brave face on. And this is going to separate the pro from the amateur. And we have to be in the present all the time. Self-management first. The other piece is we'll get this done together. In terms of people working from home, we set up protocol. How are we gonna meet? How are we gonna communicate? One of the things that I always tell people, right now, managers, leaders, whatever the case may be, they have less control and they have more stresses. But don't get away from those habits and rituals. I mean, if you had a coffee at 8 o'clock in the morning, continue to have a coffee at 8 o'clock in the morning. If you have a coffee before you go to your desk, continue to do that. If you always call in at 10 o'clock, continue to do that. And these water cooler meetings or these drive-by meetings that used to happen, they're happening on Zoom now. And the other piece here is that one of the things that I talked about yesterday in Cincinnati was a person saying, well, I'm having a really hard time scheduling my time around my kids. Well, the best way to do that is if you have young kids, you say, between 10 and 2 is mom's and dad's work time. So if you got 2 people at home, dad's work time is from 10 to 2, mom takes care of the kids. Mom's work time is maybe from 8 to 10 or 2 to 4, whatever the case may be, dad's got to take care of the kids. But we want to discipline ourselves.
Right.
And the other piece is focus your energy on positive outcomes. Think about where you need to be, not 6 months from now. Think about where you need to be 2 or 3 weeks from now. And how are you going to get there? And don't try to go it alone. If you got people working for you, Rob, you know this as well as I know this. You got to lean on your people. People know your business. You got to trust them. You can't be the person making the decisions.
Right. And there's a question along those lines. Like when you just mentioned 2 to 3 weeks, a question came in from the chat. And Jennifer, it's a great question. If you want to talk live with Nick, it's really easy for me to do it. But I'll read it, and if you have any clarifying, we can absolutely get you going. So Nick, Jennifer mentions how great it is that some companies are quickly adapting to produce alternative products. However, when some of these changes happened, we were looking at weeks or months of quarantine. So are these changes that will sustain the companies for a year or more while COVID runs its course? Or are they just short-term solutions to keep them afloat for a few months? So I
They
think
can be
you're
both.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
They,
yeah. So
they can be both. They can be both. Now let me give you a perfect example of what that looks like. I was talking to one of the owners of the Keg restaurant in Hamilton. His name is Jim. And he said to me, he said, Nick, he said, when this struck, I thought we were in big trouble. And I never really thought that the selling these steak kits would go, but my people thought it was a great idea. It's worked out so well for us that I've decided that even after we get back to whatever the new normal is, I'm going to keep that piece because it helps me cover my overheads. I don't make a lot of money, but it's going to become part of our fabric. It's the same thing with Storm Hair Salon. Show Us Your Roots may become part of their fabric. Selling these beauty kits will become part of their fabric. So it can be both. Right now, you need something to get you through. You need something to get you through. However, it could be part of the overall growth process and maybe something that you don't want to lose. The example is university webinars, college webinars. We're never going to go back to 100% classroom delivery. There's going to be webinars at least on 70% of all programs.
absolutely. So, and you talked a little bit about vision, and so I think what I'm hearing you say is part of the vision is getting through the next 2 to 3 weeks, the next 2 to 3 months, and some of these things. Am I correct to say, like, basically you just always have to be moving forward?
Always have to be moving forward. Always
Right.
have to be moving forward. You know, the past is the past. You can't change it. You can't
Yeah,
change the past. It's history. Learn from it, move on.
something
Okay.
my dad's always told me in business. He runs a business for over 40 years and just says, Rob, you always have to be moving forward. You don't always see a year down, but you always have to be moving forward. Is
Yeah.
that about right?
That's about, not about right. It is right. Yeah. It
Okay.
is right.
Yeah,
It
because
is
I
right.
see in the neighborhood, I see a couple pizza places. One around March 14th said, "Hey, we're going to close down until this is over."
Mm-hmm.
And another one is like, "Hey, how can we serve you more?"
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're both struggling, but I bet one is struggling less than the other.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. We're all struggling. Everybody's in the same boat. It doesn't matter if you're if you're a hairdresser, or if you're in real estate, or if you're a human resources professional, a management consultant, mediator. We're all struggling, and all of us know one thing for sure: we don't know what the end result's going to look like. No, none of us know that. Well, because it'll continue to change. So there's an element of adaptability that really comes into play on this one. Any other questions?
Perfect.
Okay.
That's all right now. So that was a great question and a really good clarifier.
The other piece here, we talk about uncertainty is the understanding piece, and I'm trying to be brief as possible because I know we don't have a lot of time. But resist the temptation to be negative. Think interaction before you think transaction. So respond, don't react. Leaders have less control, less opportunity for feedback, in some cases, less visibility. Resist the temptation to be negative. Be courageous. And I talk about this as being the great unmasking. You think of Premier Ford in the province of Ontario. Before COVID-19, people were ready to kill him. He's a terrible premier. He's doing this, he's doing that. What has he done? He's come out and he said, listen, we're going to get through this. Okay. We're going to get through this. We're going to flatten the curve. He showed concern. He communicates on a regular basis because what he's doing here in the process of understanding, he's building a sense of community. People need to know that you care before they care about what you know. And this time through here right now, nurturing relationships to get the job done becomes very critical. And one of the things that I talk a little bit about, if you have a group of people, if the trust is high, if the trust amongst people was very high pre-COVID, you're going to find in your virtual meetings or the meetings you have with people, there's a lot of talk. There's a lot, people are free to give their opinion, to talk a little bit about what they think is right, what they think needs to be improved. If trust is low, you're going to find yourself as a leader having to engage in conflict by flushing people out with questions. I call this giving people the soft landing, because they don't want to speak for whatever reason. They're not sure, but we have to almost be a people sitter. And last but not least, if the trust is zero, there is no trust, you're going to find yourself doing a lot of one-on-one conversations in terms of finding out what people need, what people want, what they expect, what the organization should be doing, and you as the manager have to start putting that together. So that understanding kind of goes right with having those virtual team meetings. Sometimes I call it the chat and chew, whereby we have an opportunity to talk a little bit during lunchtime, have our virtual meeting, we have lunch together. Some companies right now, company I worked with about three weeks ago, they're doing 10-minute meditation and yoga together. Now, it works for them. And it's okay to have your kids. I go back to the Robert Kelly thing. Remember that Robert Kelly? I think he was with the BBC. He was an expert on North Korean relationships. I remember he was doing that virtual meeting there, and his kid came in, and then his wife came in to try to get the kid away, and the other kid came in. Oh. It's okay to have a sense of humor.
Is that the one where everybody thought it was his nanny?
Yeah, I thought it was the nanny. That was his wife. Yeah.
And he was being interviewed on might have been CNN or yeah, right. Great example.
It's okay to have a sense of humor. It's okay. Be flexible. It's about a new work reality. And what you're going to find is that coming out of this, the Angus Reid poll, the Angus Reid Institute, published on May 7th, a survey that said, and they asked the question to people, after this is over, where would you prefer to work? 24% of all people want to go back to work. 39% don't want to go back to work. They want to work from home. And 37% say they don't mind going into the office as long as it's 2 days or less. And in some cases, you may not want people back to work, and you may want them out of the office because they're more productive. And right. You can see this now with Marlborough Capital and a couple of other large real estate people in the city of Toronto. They're predicting a 38% vacancy rate as of January the 1st in downtown Toronto with office space available.
Wow.
People don't need it. They don't need it. And we have adapted quite well in terms of this virtual environment on how to deliver webinars, how to use Zoom, how to use Microsoft Teams, all those things. Now, I'm not saying everybody's got to use them. I'm not saying that at all. But it's another tool that you have available to you that will enable you to lower your costs short term. You can't open up your restaurants yet. You're not going to be able to do that. So what can you do in order to stay relevant? That's all you want to do. And this is where the government comes in, and they help supplement with their small business loans. I believe, and I could have it wrong, I believe it's $40,000. And you pay back 30, you get to keep 10.
Correct.
As long as you got a payroll, that's a great deal.
Yeah, that's correct. And then there's a new one along those lines. Some people don't qualify for that one because maybe they didn't have employees, and there's a new one that's just been announced by one of our partners, Venture Niagara. So for anybody who might have fallen through the cracks on that one, let me know. There's another program through Venture Niagara
There's another program. And when did that come?
Yeah. And Doug made a really nice comment along the lines of what you were talking before about reaching out and interacting with your clients. And Doug, thank you for this. He says that he's found that if you know how to contact your customer and client, even if it's just to call them to ask how they are and staying safe, it doesn't have to be about work, and it can just be, hey, how are you? Are you okay? Are you safe? I was just thinking about you, right?
Yeah.
And that sincerity and that caring goes a long way in earning a client for a long time to come. So
that's a great point. That's a great point. You know, it's funny you say that, because I know that there are some financial institutions. The example I'll use is RBC Dominion Security, specifically Cooper Wealth Management. Their people are calling their clients once every 3 weeks, not to talk about the market and putting them at rest, just to see how they're doing, how they're faring, and giving them some reassurances that we're going to come out the other side. And that's a great point. That's a fantastic point. So if we're in the service sector business, we should be doing that, reaching out to our clients and talking to our clients and making sure they're cool.
Right. And you were talking too, Nick, a little bit before about that. I think I recognize a couple names here as people who have employees, and I believe they're working remotely right now.
Right.
And actually, I have this challenge too: is you're working remotely, you've got a small team. I liked the comment about the chew and chat over lunch, because it is hard to stay connected with your own team sometimes as the business owner, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, that's a perfect point, Rob, because that leads right to that next point of clarity. Remember, we talked about clarity is the anesthesia for complexity. Well, clarity is basically, you know, the establishment of the new norms. How will we communicate? Will we communicate daily? Will we communicate weekly, bi-weekly? What are the times? And what you'll find, if you got people that work in different time zones, you want to get within the hour of the time zone. So if it's 9 o'clock here and it's 11 o'clock somewhere else, you want to have that chat around 10. You want to get within the hour of the time zone. That's number one. So you want to think that through. So if you got people in California, it's a 3-hour difference. You're going to have to split that difference. Also, agendas are important, especially if you're going to meet virtually. It ensures that everyone is heard. Rotating the chairs, it ensures that people have the ability to facilitate the meeting, unless they choose not to. It also ensures that there's a moderator and protocols. One of the things that I do with my people is I say, hey, no multitasking. You can't be trying to balance your checkbook and being on the virtual meeting, because this is going to happen fast. This is a 45-minute meeting. Y'all have the agenda. Y'all had an opportunity to review it. You had an opportunity to put your input to it. You know what we're going to talk about. You know who's championing what cause. Let's start now. Okay? And that's fine. We're finished in 45 minutes, maybe an hour. If somebody's got another bigger issue, they can stay on after the chat. No multitasking. So we move through quite quickly, because you're going to find that people are busier in virtual teams. They have more going on. Also, how do we engage? And that piece of clarity is, how do we engage in effective problem solving? What's the process we're going to use? Different people have different processes for resolving problems, but you know, I have one that I call the Simplex process, and all my people use that particular one. How are we going to make decisions? Decisions are going to be made on a unanimous basis, by consensus, by consultation. Is it leader made, or is a team member just make their decision as to who they're going to service and not service? So how's that going to work? What's that going to look like? How are you going to feed that back to your people? And especially if we've got 5 people on our team, but you and I got a project on the go, then I just need to communicate with you. I don't need to communicate with the other 3 people. I just bring them into the loop. So how's that going to work? And what do we need to be ready for come the next meeting?
Gotcha.
So that virtual teams work that way. And last but not least is the agility piece. Sometimes we call it the adaptability piece. Rule number one is cut the bureaucracy. Okay. These are new times, which equals new thinking, which means we got to have greater flexibility in terms of what we're doing. One thing that the COVID virus has taught us, it teaches us, it teaches us two things. Number one, the world changes and we need the new skills and abilities to succeed in the new normal, even though we don't know what it's going to look like. And number two, when the new normal hits, we're going to have to hit the reset button and come back to what was relatively normal before. The example I mean is office teams versus virtual teams. Virtual teams are going to be a fact of life. Proactive planning in the pre-COVID now is managing risk in the new era. Priority management before, now it's all about communication skills and how we're going to do this and how quick are we going to move through. And you take a look at one of my clients, Canadian liquid processors. They are making 8,000 bottles of sanitizer per day.
Wow.
Per day. They've gone from 28 people to 261. You take a look at educational institutions, in 3 days, the University of Calgary putting everything, or 7 days putting everything online. It's almost like it's just a new way. It's just a new way of thinking through. And you know, we look at setting the optimization of resources. There's going to be some people we're not going to need anymore. And I hate to say that, but your organization, if it had 50 people, you may find with virtual teams, you can do it with 35 people and still get the same value. There's going to be some of that. Now, I'm not saying those 15 people will be unemployed. New skills, increased talent, new jobs. There are jobs now that are coming out of COVID-19 that never existed March the 12th.
Right.
Never existed March the 12th. So, and the other piece to greater flexibility is the clarity of responsibility. So clarity, responsibility is communication. Driving accountability is assertiveness. We're going to have to be tough on the issues, but soft on our people, because this is a very large change in terms of the way we think. And one of the things that I do is that providing recognition. There's something that I have that I call snack time. Is that my expectation is for people to share their snack. What are the new challenges you're dealing with? How did you deal with them? And where are you right now? So what did you have to deal with? How did you handle it? And what were the results? And it's okay for the result to be negative because we're kind of learning as we go. So we're not going to get it right the first time, but we don't need to get it right the first time. We need to move forward. Our job as leaders is to instill hope in people. Okay. And one of the things that I talk about is during this period of time is, and I tell this to leaders, we have to manage from the heart. Hear and understand your people. Even if you disagree with your people, don't make them wrong. Acknowledge the uniqueness in your people. Remember to look for their people's positive intentions and always tell your people the truth with compassion. And communication is huge in a virtual teamwork environment. So our expectations of our people will increase over a period of time.
Gotcha. Great points for managing a team. Absolutely.
Okay. Do your people have any questions that they might want to put my way?
Actually, I think I saw Gord had his hand up a second ago. Let's see. Trying to. Hello, Gord.
Okay.
Was I correct? Did you have a question, or were you just waving at me, Gord?
No, I have a question. Okay, with the uncertainty and the complexity of the situation and how people are approaching clarity, how many times do they really be wrong, or can they accept being wrong until they find out what the new norm is? And how is that going to handle the management of that organization and the impact it has on its employees?
Okay, can you I only heard part of it. Can you repeat it?
Okay, there's a lot of uncertainty and complexity involved.
Right.
And everybody's trying to reach a clarity situation.
Right.
Okay, now, as you do that, there's going to be a lot of failures or things that don't work.
Right.
Now, how is that going to affect the impact of the company and its employees, as every time they come up with a new idea, it's not working? Oh, this isn't working. This isn't our thing.
Well, we're going to have to take minimal risks, and one of the things that I encourage people to do is think of it this way: you're going to have to take some risks, but the risks are going to have to be manageable risks. So if somebody wants to do something, you have an idea what the finish line looks like, but you know if you're going to be successful, after about 3 or 4 days, you should be around this area. If you're not there, now it's time to retweak the process, and you're going to be wrong. There's going to be times where we are going to make mistakes. There are times we're going to be going down the wrong path. But the longest journey begins with the shortest step. If you don't do anything, how much better off will you be? And that's one of the things that we talk about in that volatility piece. There is no pattern in front of us to help us determine if we're right or wrong. When we come to the decision-making process, if we do this, this is going to happen. Well, we don't know that anymore because we're in a whole new world. There are things that we're going to have to try and monitor accordingly. And we're going to have to switch, and we're going to have to switch gears. There's no doubt about that. So to answer your question, I would say managing risks, being risk averse is a good thing in this time, but it can't be the be all and the end all. We have to have an idea of where we're going, because we don't know where we're going. Any road will get us there.
Well, thank you very much. It's a tricky situation.
It absolutely is.
Come across that.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's a very tricky situation. And it's a situation whereby we're going to have some challenges associated with that. No doubt in my mind.
It sounds like you have to adapt, but and try new things, but at the same time, you gotta be careful that those new things aren't wildly expensive, because if you make a mistake, then your cash is gone for good, right?
Well, that's true.
Yeah. So I guess like your examples with Wellington Court and their taco kits, or the Keg in Hamilton and their steak kits.
Right.
They took the risk because they had to buy some inventory, but it's not like they did a huge renovation to the restaurant before they did.
No. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why the Keg went to steak kits was to reduce their inventory, because they had all this meat and they had pre-bought. They usually buy a little bit ahead of time. Well, they had all this meat. They had to do something.
So they try something that doesn't.
Yeah.
They would have lost the money on that steak if it spoiled, and now they have a new They've tried something, and now it's a new revenue line that's going to help them pay their rent well during this time frame, right?
Exactly.
So glad Gord asked.
Yep. Okay. Was there another question?
I don't see another, but I'm happy to. I know you're happy to entertain any others. So.
Yep. Well, just a very quick summary. Let's do a volatility summary. First thing I'm asking people to do in volatility, when we do vision, put your oxygen mask on. Take care of yourself first. Make sure you're clear. Help employees be productive by coaching your team members. Address any stressors that they might have and enhance those satisfiers, and make sure that people are focusing on the vision. Whatever that vision might be, it's very short term. In understanding summary, think interaction before transaction. Identify those challenges, build a community within your team, support team members, and empathy is of tantamount importance. In terms of clarity, create structure, especially if you have a virtual team. When are we going to meet? How are we going to meet? Engage in productive problem solving. Encourage innovative short-term solutions. Always have questions and answer periods where we look at what went well, what do we need to improve on next time, and what did we learn. And as I like to say, keep an open door policy in place. And the agility piece is track your successes, allow people to increase their innovation skills, drive accountability and responsibility, recognize people for a job well done, and reward people where you can for a job well done. And some people don't like to be recognized in public. Okay, some people like to be just recognized privately, and that's okay. That's okay. You find out what that is. You find out where they're balanced, because you know your people better than anybody else does. So you've got a handle on it.
See, I can tell by some comments that are coming through the panelists here that your talk is really resonating with people, Nick. Thank you. One question that's come through, first a comment, then followed with a question about EQ and how it's extremely important element of growing and sharing and showing a sense of maturity and calmness, caring and understanding. So just basically reiterating what you were saying about calmness and caring with your team. Right. How can you teach that to others who find themselves in the wrong space? So it's a challenging question that Vern's asking, but I'm going to assume that, let's say Vern is talking with, maybe he's a business and he's got a manager on his team who maybe isn't so great at some of that maturity and calmness and caring and understanding. How do you teach that to somebody? Or how would I teach that if I'm dealing with a small business owner having staff for the first time? I think it's a big question, but maybe you see an answer.
Well, one of the things that we notice very quickly is vision, understanding, clarity, and agility. It's a cultural change, and one of the things in cultural change is that we need to create momentum, alignment, and accountability. And people are either on the train or they're off the train. So if I've got a manager who's having a very difficult time adjusting, I have to put my coaching hat on, take off my boss's hat, put my coaching hat on, and start to sit down and say, okay, Nick, these are some of the challenges that I'm seeing. Help me understand where the difficulties are, because I'm expecting A, but B's happening. I don't say to that individual, Nick, you better change or else you're not going to have a job. We can't tolerate this. That's only going to make matters worse. Some people aren't going to be able to adjust to this type of new normal. It's going to be a very difficult adjustment. But again, we have to walk them through. And I had a fellow say the other day to me, I don't have time to be a babysitter. And I said, well, I said, Bill, you're going to be a babysitter. It's just that you're not dealing with babies. You're dealing with people. You're not dealing with 3-year-olds. You're dealing with 43-year-olds. And there's an element of our job that is people sitting. But that was no different. That was no different prior to COVID-19. The only thing that really changes is the way we do it. Mm-hmm. I take a friend of mine who was in the real estate business, and he brought his daughter into the real estate business. He walked her through things, and he taught her how to do specific things and why it was important. The key here is that he made her a priority. He took the time to make that woman a priority, and she's paying off great dividends now.
Right.
She's doing a marvelous job. As a matter of fact, she's doing things that he can't do. And he doesn't need to do them because He's doing something else, like selling homes. It's his job. It's what he does. And he's really good at it. And she's doing that marketing and advertising piece and also selling some homes along the way.
Great example.
He's gonna survive. He's gonna survive. But he took the time. He took the time.
We have a thank you to that, saying it's a great answer. Summing it up, saying sounds like the key is developing and honing great relationships, and we're in the perfect storm right now for allowing to see and feel what EQ is all about. So he says thank you. So I wonder, we have a really diverse audience here. We have a student starting a business, we have an experienced business owner, we have food service, we have real estate, we have a couple brick and mortar type businesses, we have a couple personal service businesses. If anybody has a question about dealing with that volatility and uncertainty that you want to ask Nick, that now is a great time. I'm more than happy to use the hand up feature. I'll turn on your mic, or type it in the Q&A and I'll turn on your mic, or just type a question and I'll read it to Nick. Whatever you're good with. But some of you, I don't know about anybody here specifically, but in talking with entrepreneurs for the past 2 months, I just keep hearing about, wow, I'm so stressed. I don't know what to do. Sometimes I feel paralyzed. So if any of you have a question about your business, now is a great time to ask to Nick. Just because, like I say, I see people say, okay, great, I can open my retail store on Tuesday now, but I'm scared to because of the health side. But I'm scared not to do it because of the money side, right? So,
well, yeah. And the other question is, will people come?
Yes, and that's a big question too. And how do you make those people feel safe to come?
Yeah, that's right. Well, you're right.
Yeah.
Right. And some people just aren't. Some people just aren't going to come. Like I was listening to the news yesterday, and baseball said we're ready to start. But over 70% of all baseball fans said they're not going to attend baseball games this year.
Right.
Now, if you're making your revenue from gate receipts, that may not be a great strategy if you're doing it if people aren't going to show up. So, you open up your restaurant, but nobody comes.
Right. Yeah.
So you're back to what you were doing before. What are you going to do? Curbside delivery, kits, whatever the case may be. Or you're just going to fold it up and ride this thing out, which may not be the best strategy because you want to maintain a market presence, right?
Right. Yeah, sometimes it's about knowing how to hang on, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep. We've had some good questions, but it seems like everybody. I don't know if anybody wants to type a note that you're all good, all set, or if you have a question or anything. But Nick, I'm so grateful that you spent this time with us. Actually, I do see one question, and
sure.
I'm happy to turn on anybody's microphone, by the way.
Sure.
I'll read the question. I'll read the question to you, Nick. So, have you encountered many people who are excited by this upheaval and the changes and challenges it is presenting? So, So Jennifer saying, as someone with a growth mindset who has felt many of these changes were inevitable and necessary, I think that this deconstruction and rebuilding of how we work and do business is a good thing long term, forcing us to abandon complacency, reevaluate what works, what matters, how we can grow, be of greater service to employers, employees, and clients and customers.
Right.
Wow.
There are people of the entrepreneurial spirit. This is Christmas every day because it's going to force organizations to change. And there are solopreneurs and entrepreneurs. They look at this as being a great opportunity to stretch their mind, to stretch the market, to see where they land. There are people who absolutely love risk. They absolutely love taking risks. There's more people than what you think. There's more. And they use the government safety net for that. So you know what? I got some backing. I'm able to do some of this.
Right. So it's interesting, Jennifer. I agree with everything Nick just said. I think you've got the right mindset to get through this. I'll be honest though, most of the businesses I'm hearing from in my role are saying, Rob, I'm scared, I'm stressed, right? And yeah.
And it's normal, Rob. It's normal to be scared. It really is. If you're not scared, something's wrong. Okay. I've been in business a long time, and even I have some apprehension. But again, I realize that if I don't do anything, my question is, how better off am I going to be?
Well, you started early on by saying on March 13th, you lost 4 months of work, just like that.
4 months of work, just gone. It was gone. And I'll remember it. Friday, March the 13th, it was gone. And by March the 16th, I was looking 7 people in the eye and saying, what are we going to do now? What are we doing?
Yeah. A couple more questions filtering in too. So one is from someone who I always find inspiring and who has fought through a lot of challenges in her time running a business. So the question is, I'm finding the need to be constantly positive with social media and with our customers. It's like putting on a perfect face all the time. We're constantly telling the customer, we're going to get through a tough time, but we're fine. We got this. And as great as that is, it doesn't help us communicate honestly with our customers. How do you feel is the right way to handle communicating struggles with customers? And should we look perfect all the time is the real question. Is it okay to show that we're struggling?
It's okay to show that we're concerned. There's no doubt about that. And it's okay to show that there is some elements of struggle. And I've always told this to you young managers and supervisors, leaders in general. Even when you're afraid, pretend to be brave. And from my standpoint, to address this, it's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to say, I have some concerns. But it's also okay to say, I'm open to suggestions. I'm listening to people. It's okay to ask your people for help. It's fine. You don't need to be walking around with all the answers. You don't have all the answers. None of us have all the answers. But collectively, we can come up with optimal solutions. You don't need the perfect solution. I need an optimal solution that allows me to maximize my resources and allows me to maximize my bottom line as it relates to the environment in which I'm in. So to answer that question, yeah, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. Because if you tell people everything's great, they're not going to believe you anyway. Because they're going to say, you're the first person I've ever met to say that, so you must be lying.
That's a great point. Yeah, people know businesses are struggling, so I think
Sure
you're
they do.
I think
Sure they
it's
do.
absolutely right.
Absolutely they do.
Yeah, and you're most welcome. Says thank you. So you're most welcome. Yeah, we have some really awesome people on this call with us today, Nick. I'm loving the comments. I'm loving what I'm seeing. Love meeting Jennifer and hearing that. I love the honesty we just heard there. Had some really, really strong questions here. So, so you've really found your mark with us today, Nick.
Well, thank you very much. Any other questions?
I don't see any yet. So I think we can start to wrap up, and that's about what I expected. Is we're running these on a very tight timeline. The funny thing is when we were meeting personally at City Hall, we were always tight on room bookings, and you were always like being pushed out the room for the next room booking. And we're starting to find that with our webinars and meetings on Zoom, as we have limited number of accounts. Today we don't have anybody right after us, so we're good. But on many days I'm like, no, we got to wrap up at 2. We got to stop at 2. So
and there's a perfect example. You may not meet at City Hall anymore.
No,
You're doing this on a regular basis.
I haven't been at City Hall in 2 months now.
Right, but you may not have these types of meetings with the enterprise group at City Hall again, because what you've done is that you're able to categorize and catalog a new method of communication that is convenient for people, and that's not only convenient for people, that is conducive to people's needs. So they book an hour, they can do it wherever they are, and go from there. Now, one thing I will mention as we wrap up, for the audience out there, check me out on social media platforms. If you got a question, comments, or concerns, send me a message if you want to expand on today's chat or any other chat. I'll answer the questions to the best of my ability, and I'll share with you some of my experiences. I'm on all 4 media platforms. You can go to my website, www.policymanagement.com. Send me a question there also. It's not a problem.
I'm gonna put policymanagement.com right in the chat for anybody who wants to find you afterwards.
Sure.
So,
yep, that's fine. They can do that.
Yeah, I'm just copying and pasting. If it seems like my eyes are all over the place, it's just because I'm doing that. So that's in the chat. I'll put in the Enterprise Center email address as well if anybody needs anything. Yeah, so one of the ways we're adapting, Nick, is we used to do everything face-to-face in person. Now we're learning how to use Zoom. We're investigating some other tools. Some very generous people like yourself have donated their time to help us create content on the fly. And so my gosh, you with such a short turnaround time from the time we were introduced to coming on with us, I'm so grateful for it. And maybe if I'm lucky, you'll agree to do it again at some point in the coming weeks.
I'll do it again. I'll do something next week for you, something different if you want.
I would love it. So absolutely, because it's a challenge. People are wondering, how do I adapt? And we're trying to meet that need. And your message, I think, is an awesome one to lead into for anybody who has weekends anymore. It's an awesome way to lead into the weekend. So thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. All right. So everybody, I've put in the notes. Peggy, thank you for that. I'm glad you feel inspired and motivated, and check Nick out at the link I put in the comments there. And Gord, good to see you again, my friend. Maybe we'll have to try lunch over Zoom. And Brandon, glad you could join us. So good to see you. And a few other friends who I haven't met before. Oh, Janice, nice to see you again as well. So quite a number of people I don't know. I hope to meet you sometime in the future. I probably won't shake your hand. We'll do the elbow bump or the foot bump or something like that. But
love the opportunity. Love the opportunity to work together, Rob. Thank you.
My pleasure, Nick. Thank you so much. I'm going to call an end to the meeting now, though. So we'll sign off, and Nick, you and I can debrief sometime in the coming days. Okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay, take